It was past 2 in the morning when Daniel Cooper opened his eyes and glanced at the ceiling. Something had disturbed his sleep, but he couldn't place it. Next to him, Claire lay still, her back turned, breathing steady. Everything looked the same, but something didn't feel right. For the past few nights, Claire had seemed distant. She was quiet at dinner, distracted when he spoke, and her eyes, usually so warm, looked far away. Daniel tried to shake the feeling off. Maybe it was just stress, he thought. Maybe he was just tired. Or maybe something was changing. 2 days earlier, Claire had started lingering in the garden for hours. She didn't answer when he called from the porch. She smiled politely when he walked into the room, but it felt like she wasn't really with him, like her mind was somewhere else. He didn't say anything, but that night, as he lay beside her, he stared at the ceiling longer than usual, wondering if their silence had grown too wide, wondering when they had stopped sharing everything. By morning, Claire was already in the kitchen. Daniel sat down to eat, but he wasn't hungry. On the table, under his coffee mug, was an envelope. No stamp, no message, just his name in Claire's handwriting. Inside was a photo. It was from a summer long ago, Daniel and Claire laughing under a string of lights at a neighbor's backyard party. Young, carefree, full of hope. Attached was a single note. "Can you still find me in this picture?" No greeting, no explanation. Daniel stared at it for a long time. He felt something stir inside him. Not fear, not anger, just realization. He couldn't remember the last time they'd laughed like that, or danced, or talked for hours the way they used to. He knew she was trying to tell him something, but instead of asking her, he did what many people do when love begins to feel uncertain. He watched quietly. That evening, Claire said she was going to meet a friend. Daniel nodded, but once she left, he found himself getting in the car. Not out of distrust, but because he couldn't take the not knowing anymore. He followed at a distance. She didn't go to a friend's house. She drove to the old community center, the one she used to volunteer at before life got busy. Daniel parked across the street. Through the glass window, he saw her talking to a teenage boy about 16 or 17. They sat at a table filled with notebooks and markers. She smiled. She leaned in. She looked alive. The boy leaned forward too, listening carefully. Claire placed a hand on his shoulder before walking toward the art shelf. Daniel sat in his car, unsure of what to think. Was this something he didn't understand? Was she replacing the family they didn't have? Or was this simply something she needed? That night, he didn't ask questions. He didn't accuse. Instead, he walked into her reading room. Her journal lay on the desk, open to a page where her handwriting spilled across the lines. "He doesn't see me anymore." Those words didn't hit him like a shout. They landed like truth, quiet, devastating. Familiar. He closed the journal and sat in the chair beside it. He had been present, but not really there. He had loved her, but forgotten to show it. He had become her husband in name only, no longer her partner, her listener, her friend. And she had disappeared slowly, quietly, without complaint. He remembered the early days, the handwritten letters, the weekend getaways, the kitchen dances. The time he built her a bookshelf from scratch just because she said she needed more space for her stories. And now, all that felt like it belonged to someone else. The next morning, Daniel made a decision. He cleared his schedule. He stayed home. He made breakfast. He tried cooking the eggs the way she liked them. He found the old poem he wrote her when they got engaged and placed it beside her coffee. When Claire walked in, she paused. Daniel looked at her and said, "I forgot how to see you, but I'm ready to start again." She didn't speak. She just sat down, tears forming in her eyes. Over the next few weeks, things began to shift. Daniel started walking with her in the evenings. They watched old movies. He turned off his phone after work. He helped her build a garden bed. Nothing grand, just presence. Real, warm presence. Eventually, he asked her about the boy. His name was Aaron. He was a foster kid she met through the center. She'd been helping him with art and schoolwork. He reminded her of Daniel when they first met, quiet, guarded, unsure of his worth. Claire hadn't fallen out of love. She had simply been searching for a part of herself she had lost. And Daniel? He had been so buried in responsibility that he didn't see the cracks forming beneath his own roof. They began to rebuild. Then, just as things felt lighter, another storm arrived. Claire collapsed one morning while tending the garden. The hospital visit turned serious quickly. The tests came back. She had early-stage lymphoma. Everything stood still. But this time, Daniel didn't shut down. He didn't turn inward. He stepped forward. He drove her to every appointment, sat through every test, cooked every meal, shaved his head when she lost her hair, held her when the nights got too long. He read her poetry every evening, just like the old days. And when she grew too weak to speak, he held her hand and reminded her of all the memories they'd built together. She survived. Weak, tired, changed but alive. And more loved than ever. 1 year later, they held a gathering at the reading cottage they had finished together before the illness. A small celebration of recovery and of the quiet strength it took to stay. Friends came. Aaron came too, now taller, stronger, and applying to college. Claire stood up and said something that stayed with everyone. Love doesn't leave us, but we can forget how to hold it. When we stop looking at each other, we stop recognizing what we built. But it's never too late. Not if we're willing to look again. Daniel smiled. That night, he took Claire's hand and led her outside. Snow had begun to fall gently. They danced under the porch light, no music. No audience, just two people remembering. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Sometimes, forgiveness doesn't need a word. It just needs time. We learn that love doesn't disappear all at once. It fades in the small moments we overlook, in the dinner tables we rush through, in the gazes we no longer return. But just because something fades doesn't mean it's gone. This story reminds us to notice the people we love, to ask real questions, to listen not just to the words, but to the silences between them. The danger in any relationship isn't the shouting. It's the slow, unnoticed absence, the kind that grows when we forget to see each other. So if someone in your life feels distant, look again. Truly look, before they stop waiting. Because love isn't just something we fall into. It's something we continue to choose every single day.